Hello and welcome, everyone. It is time to enter the Kumite. This is not a sport. I repeat, this is not a sport. I'm joined today by my friend and fellow colleague, Cole Halverson,
Hey guys, how's it going?
and our technical engineer, the 9-4 Ninja himself, Sean Myers. Today, we will be discussing the return of Nick Diaz, the OG Diaz brother, coming back to fight Robbie Lawler.
What a freaking fight card, dude. This thing is stacked.
So
Absolutely
stoked.
stacked.
But if you enjoy the content we're creating, guys, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Before we get into this, don't be afraid to hit that little bell icon either. That way you can stay up to date with the latest Kumite gossip.
Before we get started, guys, I just want to give a little shout out to Game Up. It's Nick Diaz's apparently top quality CBD company that he's been working on. Just to remind everybody that the Diaz brothers have not been spending their time unwisely.
Game Up.
Game Up.
CBD company. Wow.
Looks legit.
That is the Diaz brothers for you right there. Entrepreneurs at work.
Seriously, man.
I mean, they have it in their image. They got it in their brand. They got it.
Nick said, fine, dude, you're going to take me out for 5 years. I'm just going to capitalize.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to Conor McGregor being an Irishman selling whiskey.
Yeah.
If Conor McGregor started selling stout, holy cow! Someone hit up Conor McGregor. We need to influence him to start selling stouts.
Stick with what you like with the platform you got, man.
I'll drink it, Conor, if you make stouts. But like we said, guys, Nick Diaz is coming back for UFC 266 on September 25th. Now, this is underneath Alexander Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega, and Valentina Shevchenko versus Lauren Murphy. So they're on the main event of a fantastic card. And don't get it twisted, guys. Nick Diaz can sell some pay-per-views himself. The Diaz name has a lot of traction in the MMA world. So it's a great card and a perfect fight for Nick to come back to. I'm really glad they didn't throw him in there with some young and hungry lion, putting him in there with a veteran like Robbie Lawler. It's a rematch that has been 17 years in the making.
It's a classic, man.
Oh.
It's a classic.
I think that was Robbie Lawler's first loss, actually.
Yeah? You think so?
I think he lost one other time, but he got out-wrestled. It's definitely the first time he ever
I'll go
got
back
finished.
and check that out.
Yeah. But yeah, 17 years in the making. Last time he fought was in 2004. It was the first time Robbie Lawler fought someone that was younger than him. Robbie Lawler was 22 at the time. He was a young and hungry lion. Nick Diaz came in at 20 years old into the UFC. It's crazy young.
Wow.
Especially for the time when,
It's in his blood, man.
Yeah.
He just loves to fight. Apparently it's how he expresses himself, according to his coach.
Exactly. Nate is always a thrill to watch, but Nick Diaz is one of my favorite fighters of all time. When I was growing up and started watching MMA, Nick was the guy to watch. He was the man, the machismo. He's a very humble and modest person, though, but you would never know that if you just watch his fight promos.
He's very well spoken, honestly.
He really is. When he's actually just
whenever-
explaining his life, he takes breaths between his words. He takes time and uses complex facial emotions.
He's not just all trash talk like his brother.
Yeah.
I feel like every time I'm watching Nate, it's just
But he changed.
just birds and cuss words.
Yeah. When he was a shit talker leading up to and throughout the entire fight. Whether he was on his back, walking you down, or after landing one of those infamous Stockton slaps, he was trying to break you down both mentally and physically. But one of my favorite quotes ever was from Nick's very first MMA coach, who we were just talking about it, Steve Heath. And it kind of sums up some of the quality of Nick's character. He says he doesn't do MMA to be popular. Nick doesn't train to get a pat on the back. Nick doesn't train and fight to get people's approval. Nick does it to survive. He knows this is his one shot. Sometimes he gets upset, and when you ask me why he gets upset, it's his inability to express himself verbally. That's why he's a fighter. But when he's in that ring, he's a poet. He's a poet in motion.
That's beautiful, man.
Oh, it's powerful.
That's beautiful.
Steve Heath, he's someone who saw the potential in this guy. He saw that fire, underneath that modest and kind of shy behavior that he has. Like, he's not going to hold eye contact for too long. He's a well-spoken person, and he's not actually aggressive.
Right, but something else that Steve Heath said was it's not just his personality or his work ethic, but it's his natural talent to pick up a move and then do it better after the third or fourth time that he displays it better than his coach, and that's just insane coming from somebody
hard not to notice that.
Yeah.
But so let's get into it. Nick Diaz was suspended for 5 years after testing positive for marijuana.
Ridiculous.
Man, in 2021, it's just almost hard to believe. But yeah, it seems over the top, but that's given how the world functions today. It's a weird thing for it to be illegal, but that's just how things were.
Hey, he obviously capitalized it, man. Another shout out.
Yeah, right.
Game
right.
up.
He's moving now. He uses it as his strength now rather than a weakness. But he did get 3 chances. He broke the offense. Apparently, he was pretty transparent about everything after the fact. He said when his routine was he would smoke weed up to about 10 days leading up to the fight.
Yeah, and then apparently he had some way to clean himself out.
Yeah, I'm guessing who knows at that time, like what the thing was to clean yourself out. But maybe he had an inside thing. It didn't work a lot of the times.
Maybe personal diet. Maybe he was just cutting enough weight to keep it off of him. I don't know.
Drain it out of him. Yeah. But Nick Diaz was honestly the first cardio king because he's not swinging for the fences with every shot. No. But he's going to throw at 50%. He's going to stay in your face, and he's going to try to break you down.
And then he's going to talk shit after he lands like 4 or 5, 30, 50% punches.
Yeah. I remember one of the first times I noticed him was in that lead up to the Robbie Lawler fight. We don't know much about him. We don't know that he's actually a modest person. But I remember him just throwing his hands in the air and shouting, "Stockton, motherfucker!"
It's awesome, man.
I think he got into Robbie's head a little bit.
That kind of charisma coming into a weigh-in, it was unnatural at that point.
Because Robbie was a monster, and so a lot of people were kind of intimidated by him. They would at least fight cautiously against Robbie Lawler. Not Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz came in there with his hands down, putting his chin out there, baiting him with it. Oh, such a good fight. This is probably going to be a kickboxing exhibition. I don't.
If it goes to the ground, how do you feel about it?
So I don't think Robbie will go for a takedown. I don't think Nick has the capability to take Robbie down. But if Robbie's trying to mix it up a little bit on the feet and go for a takedown and get Nick on his back, I don't think he wants to be there. Nick Diaz is a legit BJJ fighter.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's like boxer and BJJ, and I don't know which of his skills or his attributes are stronger, his boxing or his BJJ. It's, in my opinion, it's really close.
I mean, he was trained by Cesar Gracie, so it makes sense that he would be strong in that.
And it was Royce Gracie who inspired him to really become a fighter. He started off as a wrestler, and he wasn't good at it.
Yeah, he said he never really felt comfortable wrestling.
Yeah.
He said he usually felt more comfortable going for submissions instead of trying to put somebody's shoulders on the ground.
Then he said he saw Royce Gracie, and he said he was inspired. He's like, I can do that. I can do that.
And he definitely can.
Then he ended up finding a Gracie.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently it was the first time he learned about all the big family tree of the Gracies. He's like, oh.
Trying to break it down and wonder which Gracie went where.
But, I do see if Robbie takes too much damage on the feet, I do see him clinching and maybe pushing his back against the cage to relieve some of that pressure because Nick Diaz is going to bring the pressure. We know that. But Diaz is very savvy off his back, so not sure exactly how it's going to play out because Robbie Lawler is not a slouch on the ground in any way. And I think he'd just stand up if he really is afraid of Nick Diaz on the ground.
So next question. How many Stockton slaps do you predict we're going to see in this fight?
Looking into my crystal ball.
I'm going to say 5.
I see 2.
You say 2? I see 5 thrown at least.
He might throw more than 2. But I see 2 of them landing because That was actually one of the things I noticed in the first fight is that Nick Diaz was really good at timing Robbie Lawler's jab with those hooks, right around right on the outside of that jab and over, because he's a little bit taller and he's a little bit longer reach, and he's using that longer reach really well. But two of the major things that are rattling around in my head is just how much damage can Lawler take after he's been active in the sport and through a bunch of wars. And Diaz has had plenty of time to recover his body and his chin. The other thing is, how good is Nick going to look after being away from the sport for over 5 years? You want to talk about ring rust? If cage rust is a thing, he has it. He has been oxidizing in the backyard like an old dog chain in some trailer park somewhere.
I mean, so I guess that's the question. Is there a limit to how much training you should be doing, or is there a limit to how much time you should be taking off? This is a good question.
Yeah.
Is it better to be as active in the ring as possible, or is it better to treat your body and make sure that you recover as much as possible?
I guess we'll just have to see. And, maybe it depends on the person, what they prefer. Some people might need to stay active to keep it in their head and keep their reflexes sharp because they're having to, be afraid of their life more often, and some might get content, like a fat cat, if they don't fight for long enough.
Even sitting out of the ring for 5 years, Robbie Lawler only has 4 fights over Nick Diaz. He only has four fights fought over Nick Diaz over the past 5 years.
Yeah, Nick fought a lot when he came into the game.
Yeah.
So let's bring this under the microscope. Let's take a deeper look at what we might see come September 25th. I see Robbie still having trouble with the pressure. He's always seemed to have trouble with a fighter that can effectively pressure him. I mean, you saw it with Woodley, explosively just throwing that overhand, just exploding in on an overhand. Really, he threw his hands out there a little bit to mix, confuse him a little bit. You saw it with Colby Covington, get out wrestled, get pressured constantly. Punches, wrestling, punches, takedown, punching, takedown, punching, takedown. And it really just threw him off, and he could never really find his way into that fight. But Lawler is down for a war. Don't get me wrong. I'd say he's down for a war as long as the war is on his terms.
And on the feet.
His fights with Rory McDonald were some of the most iconic fights of all time. I do see him clinching with Diaz this time to relieve the pressure. And maybe holding him against the cage for some of the time, since I do think Lawler is physically stronger than Nick Diaz. So in their first fight, Diaz was trying to time Robbie's jab and throw a hook around it. Normally the straight punch will be a looping punch, but Diaz did a good job at pulling back just a bit to take the power right off of Robbie's punch and use his longer reach. Both guys are going to be staying busy with their jabs again. Diaz did a really good job in their first fight at pumping that jab out there and moving his arms to keep Robbie distracted. You saw the same thing with Tyron Woodley. He gave him too many things to think about, and he was pressuring him. He knew the danger was coming, but he didn't know exactly where it was coming from. It was hard to keep up with the timing. But yeah, I see Lawler waiting for Nick to try and pull the lead hand down for the straight. I see him slipping it and throwing an overhand. Or maybe he'll just throw a straight and not wait for Diaz, because he did that a few times in their first fight. But I feel like he's going to land at least one of these. Nick's going to reach for that lead hand. He's going to try to pull it down, and Lawler's going to slip that straight, and he's going to land with that overhand. I see that happening again, especially with, I feel like Nick's going to come out kind of similar, but I feel like his reflexes are going to take a second to kick back in. I see Lawler going back to feinting the straight or an overhand and ripping to the body with his lead hand. I don't see it doing much to Diaz's cardio, but his body's pretty lanky, so it's probably going to hurt.
There's nothing you can do to Diaz's cardio.
Nope.
He is going to be in your
Can't
face
touch
the
it.
entire fight.
Triathlete.
Have we looked into whether or not this is going to be a 3-round or a 5-round like his brother?
I mean, Nate got the privilege, and that always tilts the scales in the Diaz brothers' favor. If
That's
there's
something I'm going to kind
10
of look into
extra
real
minutes
quick.
for a fight. Lawler needs to be careful not to overextend because Diaz has some long hooks, And that's how he got knocked out the first time around. He overextended. Diaz saw it. He threw that clean right hook, long right hook, and knocked him out on the spot. This is a tough fight to call because there's so many variables that we don't have numbers for right now.
Holy freaking cow. Nick Diaz, Robbie Lawler 2 is official for a 5-round non-title bout on the main card of UFC amongst 2 other title bouts.
I can't believe it. The Diaz brothers get a special
It's
kind
the
of
name,
privilege.
man. It's the name.
People want to see it.
And you
I
get to
mean, this
test
is
the
a
cardio.
big fight to make. This is a big fight to make. I mean, people still remember Nick Diaz. He's a gangster. So let's talk about picks.
I got to be honest. I haven't seen enough of Robbie Lawler's fights to really understand how he's going to fight. But either way, I would still pick Nick Diaz.
No matter how good he was.
I don't care.
I watched Brock Lesnar, and I got my money on Nick Diaz. I'm personally going to go with Diaz via decision.
You're going to say all 5 rounds?
It's risky. He's been out for 5 years. It's risky. I think he'll still have godly cardio, and I think he'll make Lawler uncomfortable with the pressure. But I don't know, man. Lawler is a veteran, and I don't think he's going to be so reckless this time around.
The other question is, how often has Robbie had a 5-round bout?
He's had a good few.
Yeah.
He had 2 wars with Roy McDonald.
That was a while back, though.
He was scheduled for Tyron Woodley, but it didn't come out of the first. Yeah, I mean, Robbie Lawler's been in the stratosphere of, elite level competition for a good while. I think he's been on some fight nights and main events. I don't know the exact number right now. But yeah, I'm seeing this going to a decision. Nick was never known for his KO power, and I think Lawler learned from the first fight. I think he's going to try to play this pretty technically. I think they've done a lot. Everyone's done a lot of tape on everybody else. But I think at the end of the day, the boxing of Nick Diaz is not going to be enough to finish Robbie Lawler in any way.
Just got to do the damage.
I think Lawler kind of wanted to just get out of that last fight 17 years ago, and he just was going for the kill, came up short, got clipped really clean. But ultimately, guys, this is all speculation because we don't know what 2 fighters will be coming out there on September 25th.
Not a clue.
Robbie Lawler's kind of inconsistent. Sometimes he comes out to fight, and sometimes it seems like he's lolling in there. He's just going through the motions. So there's both fighters are kind of unpredictable on how they're going to come out. Diaz could be rusty, and Lawler might have burned that fire out because he's been in the game for a very long time. But I'm so happy to see Nick Diaz back, and it honestly couldn't be under better circumstances. I want to thank you, Cole, for joining me today and sharing your insights.
My guy, thank you for having me.
Oh, I love these. I'd like to thank our audio engineer, the 941 Edge himself, Sean Myers, for the sound we're sharing here. I'd like to thank the fighters for going up on the world stage and laying it on the line. And lastly, but certainly not least, I'd like to thank you, our viewers, for joining the Kumite with us here today. If you like what we're doing here, guys, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget, this is not a sport. You don't play fight.